we are going to do something on Greenland, whether they like it or not.
The Prime Minister of Greenland says he does not want to be part of the United States. The people of Greenland do not want to be part of the United States.
The European Union has tools at its disposal and is prepared to respond.
Taking Greenland by force or coercion would mean the U.S. turning on an ally, Denmark, and that could spell the end of NATO.
There's no alert tone, no emergency broadcast. In our scenario, the breaking point has already passed. When this timeline begins, NATO is already over, because an alliance cannot survive a broken promise. Just a quick disclaimer, guys. Before you freak out, this is all hypothetical. We fed real-world research into Google's Gemini to stress test a worst-case scenario through a survival lens. What happens if the US takes Greenland by force? In a high-alert world, what's more dangerous than missiles? A hack or a glitch? And does the rest of the world have enough military weight to stop the US? This timeline starts with a bang, and Greenland is where it gets loud, fast. So buckle up, grab some popcorn, and stay vigilant. Here's how it all goes down.
We need it for security purposes. We need it for national security and even world security.
At first, it hits like a headline and a meme. Greenland isn't for sale is everywhere. Late night jokes.
Is he gonna Greenland?
TikTok Greenland statehood skits.
Pretty realistic.
Then the alerts start rolling in, and the jokes get quieter. Think of NATO like a group chat, where 32 friends agree, if anyone gets jumped, we all pull up. For decades, the US was the friend everyone expected to show up first. Then in early 2027, that friend goes, I'm not helping anymore. Then it adds, I'm also changing the group rules.
Russia or China will take over Greenland, and we're not going to have Russia or China as a neighbor.
In our simulation, the US government decides this massive, icy island is too valuable to leave to someone else. It's Arctic high ground. The US already runs Patuxent Space Base there for missile warning. Now, they want more control. So they slap a 25% tariff on Europe and send special forces to seize control of Greenland's ports. Denmark, the country that governs Greenland, is stunned. They call an emergency NATO session to coordinate a response. Sanctions, access restrictions, and a united front. But in that room, the alliance cracks. For the first time ever, the US simply says, no, we're not playing. Instead, they treat it like a threat and warn the allies not to interfere. In that moment, NATO doesn't just end with a bang. It collapses into a giant, messy divorce. But Greenland isn't just a chessboard, it's home. Inuit leaders have been blunt. There's no such thing as a better colonizer. For the people living there, this turns into checkpoints, slowed shipments, and one constant question: do we still get supplies this week? And the world takes sides fast. Europe is furious. Canada backs Denmark because this suddenly feels uncomfortably close to home. This kind of breakup has happened before. In 1966, France told the US military to get out, and around 70,000 US personnel, including dependents, had to relocate fast because France basically changed the locks. But this time, it's bigger. The war starts the 2027 way, not with a first shot, but every door in Europe slamming shut at once. For the 84,000 US troops and their families in Europe, it turns personal. One day you're welcome, the next day your ID gets rejected, you're denied fuel at gas stations, and flights home suddenly get scarce and insanely expensive. Europe doesn't have to shoot. It just has to make life miserable enough that Americans decide, we're leaving now. Then comes the first real who fired first moment. A European recon drone crosses into the US no-go zone around Greenland. US fighters intercept it and force it out. No missiles, no explosions, just a near miss that snaps whatever trust is left. Europe calls it surveillance. Washington calls it hostility. Instead of rushing into open war, both sides start fighting the modern way. Sanctions, threats, and pressure on shipping routes. While we're busy clashing with our oldest friends, Russia makes its move. They send unmarked troops, soldiers without flags, into Narva, a border city in Estonia right up against Russia. It's the perfect place to test the line. In the old world, the US would have rolled in with tanks. But now, Europe's tied up trying to push Americans out. And if Russia can grab a border city and hold it, the message is brutal. The security guarantees are broken. Back in the States, you feel this divorce at the gas pump first. With the Atlantic turning into a no-go zone, oil prices spike and panic buying hits Costco. A college student gets an email. Study abroad canceled because the route just turned political. Finally, it hits street level. GPS starts glitching. Ship trackers start lying. Protests flare up, and people realize how fragile the whole system really is. Meanwhile, the internet turns poisonous. US and European social media are littered with propaganda, deepfakes, and satirical memes about the world ending and Donald Trump's ballroom parties. For civilians, the consequence is trust collapse. Protest waves grow, crackdowns harden, and the warning sign is simple. A viral lie moves people faster than an official order. This is the information fog phase. Survival at this stage is about staying grounded. Don't panic buy. Instead, build a simple 72-hour go bag. Water, your essential meds, and a little cash. Because when the biggest alliance cracks, the first thing to glitch is the just-in-time system that keeps shelves full. The Atlantic Ocean has always been America's shield, but in Phase 2, it becomes a cage. While the Navy is left with nowhere to park, our rivals move into our digital living rooms to ensure we never trust each other again. By April, NATO's divorce is official.
You're insane!
Europe stops waiting for the US to change its mind and forms a new European-led coalition. It's basically a no Americans allowed club for military and trade. And they make a huge call. If the US won't play by the rules, American ships don't get to use their ports. Think about that for a second. For decades, the US Navy has been the king of the sea because it has parking spots everywhere. Spain, Italy, the Netherlands. Suddenly, those doors are locked. This is the Blockade of Shadows. It's a high-stakes game of chicken. US aircraft carriers end up in the middle of the ocean with nowhere to refuel or repair. We've actually seen how a blockade hits the US without firing a single shot. Back in the 1973 oil embargo, Arab nations basically just stopped shipping oil to us. The result was chaos. Gas lines, dry stations, and fuel rationing based on your license plate. In Phase 2, the Atlantic Gap feels like that. Not a naval battle, just sky-high gas prices and hoarding-style panic. While the West is in a tailspin, China steps in as the cool-headed adult. They start signing deals with countries in Africa and South America, saying the Americans are unstable. Trade with us instead. They aren't using missiles. They're using money to push the US out of the spotlight. But their biggest move is on your phone. They launch a massive information war using AI to flood your social media with fake videos of food riots and bank closures. The goal? To make Americans so angry at each other that we don't notice our global power is evaporating. At home, the blockade hits your kitchen table. The US depends on Europe for specialized medicine, a huge chunk of our insulin and high-end antibiotics. By May, your local pharmacy reports shortages. It's not that the world ran out of medicine, it's that the ships are stuck in diplomatic limbo. And on top of that, you get the gas panic. Fuel climbs north of $9 a gallon because tankers are taking 2,000-mile detours. Suddenly, the American dream starts to feel really expensive. And remember those TikTok jokes, Greenland statehood, Greenland isn't for sale? They're funny until you're standing at the pharmacy counter and the clerk says, "We can't get it." This is a supply chain glitch. If your survival depends on daily medication, talk to your doctor now about an emergency 60-day supply. In a crisis, the system that relies on daily restocking is the first thing to fail. That extra month of pills is a lifeline. Meanwhile, on the military front, the US is forced to take the long way around. Since Europe locked its doors, we fly grueling routes and lean hard on the UK for basing where it can. Europe's message is clear. They want us out, and they don't want to fire a single bullet to do it. But eventually, someone chooses escalation, and the moment it gets loud is here. The US doubles down and starts hitting from a distance. Long-range missiles from ships and submarines, stealth strikes. The goal is to punch gaps in Europe's collective air defense network long enough to move and operate. Europe's play is simple. Make the US waste its best, most expensive shots. They use decoys and waves of cheap drones, forcing the US to send million-dollar interceptors just to keep the sky clear. At sea, the shoreline becomes a danger zone of mines and coastal threats. It's a numbers game now. Get closer and take losses. Stay back and lose your influence. By the end of Phase 2, the war is at your front door. It's no longer a military conflict. It's a survival crisis. We're now one computer glitch away from total collapse. By July, both sides realize this isn't going to be a quick shock and awe victory. It turns into a contest of factories. Who can build drones, missiles, and spare parts faster than the other side can blow them up? In the US, we've got a serious math problem. We have some of the most advanced weapons in the world, like the Tomahawk cruise missile, but they're insanely expensive and can take months to build. We're using our best shots faster than we can replace them. Meanwhile, Europe flips a switch and moves into a full wartime economy. Imagine car factories in Germany or France suddenly stopping production of SUVs and shifting into war gear. Thousands of cheap drones, artillery shells, spare parts. Europe realizes they don't need to be more high-tech than the US. They just need to be good enough and have more of it. But while the factories are humming, the system war hits home for you. Up until now, the war felt over there, out in the ocean. Now it moves into your light switches and kitchen sink. Both sides start launching big cyber attacks on the stuff we rely on every day. Think back to the Colonial Pipeline hack in 2021. A single attack that forced a total shutdown, triggering fuel shortages and panic across the East Coast. Now picture that happening every single week. In this phase, hackers go after the power grid, water treatment plants, and hospital networks. Then something even quieter fails. The internet's veins. Undersea cables. No explosion, just buffering. Calls dropping, card payments stalling, trading screens lagging. When your feed stops loading, the panic spreads faster than any missile ever could. And without the internet, the already crippled supply chain finally stops moving. If the computers can't talk, the food doesn't ship. This is where the death toll climbs, and it's not from bombs. It's death by absence. By the end of this phase, hundreds of thousands could be dead. Most aren't soldiers. They're civilians abandoned by the systems we rely on. No power, no medicine, no clean water. When the grid stays down for a week, hospital backup generators start to fail. When water treatment plants get hacked, people get sick from the tap. This is system collapse. In this phase, your biggest survival tool isn't a gun, it's water. Start by storing at least a week's worth of water and a simple filter like a life straw to make sure what you do find is safe to drink. In Phase 3, being prepared means you can make it a week without the system. Then comes September, the most dangerous month in human history. Because both sides are using heavy jamming to mess with sensors, a US early warning satellite picks up a glitch. A fake signal that looks like a nuclear launch coming from Europe. For a few terrifying minutes, leaders in Washington are staring at the red button.
Come on, what are you waiting for?
The world only survives because a human operator decides to wait, saying, hold on, we need a second confirmation. This might sound like a movie, but it actually happened in 1983. A Soviet officer named Stanislav Petrov saw his screen flash a warning. 5 US nuclear missiles were incoming. His orders were to fire back immediately, but he had a gut feeling it was a glitch and refused to pull the trigger. he was right, and the world kept turning. In our simulation, this is where the momentum breaks. But there are no mission accomplished banners. Welcome to the endgame, where America is no longer the global bodyguard and your daily survival depends more on your neighbor than your government. By October, the world feels like it's waking up after a massive car crash. The adrenaline is gone, and everyone is staring at the wreckage. After that terrifying near miss in September, where a digital glitch almost triggered a nuclear launch, both the US and the European-led coalition realize they've pushed things too far. No one officially surrenders, but everyone stops swinging. We call this the frozen world. It's not peace, it's a stalemate. Like two neighbors now living behind 10-foot fences with cameras pointed at each other's doors. That's the new Atlantic. A world where AI-powered drones and satellites monitor the ocean, making sure no one crosses an invisible line. We've seen versions of this before. The Korean demilitarized zone is the classic example. Nobody really wins, so the shooting slows, the lines harden, and it stays tense for decades. In our simulation, the Atlantic becomes one giant high-tech DMZ. But as the smoke clears, you start to see the real global invoice, the bill everyone pays afterward. By the end of the year, our simulation predicts a death toll between 1 and 2 million people. Now remember, this wasn't a world-ending nuclear war. Most of these people died from the invisible collapse. It's the elderly who couldn't get heat when the grid failed in November. It's the thousands who die from a basic infection because the medicine is trapped in a shipping container. This is the chaos that follows when the world's operating system simply crashes. While the US and Europe are busy tearing each other down, the global map changes for good. Since Europe to US antibiotic shipments are frozen, China offers to fill the gap. It feels like relief, but it's actually leverage. They lean hard into that new manager energy. While American ports are still untangling the wreckage, Chinese trade routes through Africa and Asia are running at full speed. And it's not just trade, it's territory. Russia doesn't leave Estonia because borders just became negotiable. And without NATO, there's no one left with the teeth to push them out. For the rest of the world, the US isn't the global bodyguard anymore. We're just a powerful, angry island. For the average American, the new normal is quiet and expensive. The era of cheap, easy everything is over. Your local grocery store has fewer choices. Your electronics cost twice as much, and international travel feels like a relic of the past. The US turns inward, focusing on our own borders and resources first. In a frozen world, survival isn't just stocking up on beans. It's building a local community. Get to know your neighbors. When big global systems like this fail, your survival and your quality of life will depend on the people living on your actual street. And this is the final realization: why NATO matters. Not because it's perfect, but because it's the referee. Not to make everyone friends, just to keep the game from turning into a brawl. Take out the ref, and the next call is made with fists. Survival in this new world comes down to preparing early and staying steady when normal never comes back. If this episode made you nervous, wait until you see what the AI predicted for 2026. And no, it's not just another GTA 6 delay. We'll see you next time on How to Survive.